Here's the Reverend Paul in Glengormley in Belfast, who wants to talk about the Middle East with me. This is a first.
How are you?
Go ahead, Reverend.
George, I'm just listening to this question on human rights and Israel. Now, we have suffered 35 years in Northern Ireland. We all know what it's like to be wrongly accused, to go through different accusations, to be told you've no right to live in your country because you're claiming a British, Northern Irish heritage, etc. And it's taken 35 years of people to come together with a lot of prayers for the establishment of a peace process which is going forward now with a recognition of both sides and both cultures, and a good parliament is beginning to work. Now, the nation of Israel has a right to exist, George. The Jewish people, my uncle was a Jew, and in 1938 he was forced to flee Austria. And words that were being said was exterminate, eradicate, destroy off the face of the earth. The same words are being said now by mullahs all over the world, and we know that the different organisations in that particular area want to wipe out the nation of Israel. Now, Israel has to accept the fact that there are two Palestinian states, and they're willing to accept that fact. So why then can these Palestinians not accept the fact that the nation of Israel has a right to exist? In 1 week, George, they lobbed 10,000 rockets into one city, and then fired rockets from a hospital and wondered why they were attacked. I mean, in your own area of Scotland, if someone was lobbing 10,000 rockets at you, do you not think people would be demanding a reaction?
Well, first I've got to tell you, Reverend, that nobody ever lobbed 10,000 rockets at a city. This number is a complete fabrication. It's not a surprise to me because I have heard that fabrication before, so I know its source. But I'm bound to tell you you've been hoodwinked on that. There were not 10,000 rockets fired by Hamas in the entire conflict, never mind at one
Well, George,
city.
let's even just say there wasn't 10,000
well, no,
say those figures are wrong, George. Was it right to fire one rocket into a town with children in it?
You'd have to, into a town with children on it. Well, let's talk about lobbing rockets. Let's talk about lobbing rockets into towns with children in them. Let's talk about that. Now, the facts, the bare facts are these, that in the conflict, 11 Israelis were killed, 6 of them soldiers and 5 of them civilians. 1,416 Palestinians were killed, the great majority of them women and children, not according to me, but according to the United Nations. The firing of rockets into towns is a deplorable thing.
Of course
it follows that somebody who lobs 1,000 times more rockets into towns with children in them is at least 1,000 times more culpable than the people who lobbed 1,000 times less.
Here's my discussion to you in this way, George. I understand your argument, and I understand from what you're saying there, you're pro-lenient Palestinian, and you probably think I'm pro-lenient nation of Israel. What I'm saying is this: the nation of Israel has the right to exist. What I'm saying is no organisation has the right to lob rockets into cities with children in them. But when you go into a war situation, when you go into conflict, I believe the nation of Israel dropped warnings that they were going to be bombing into those areas well in advance.
Can I ask you a question on that, Reverend? What was the point in dropping warnings, given that all the gates of Gaza had been locked and there was nowhere to run?
Well, I would say when they dropped that, they were trying to get them to go out, and you would have to ask the nation of Israel, would you?
Well, you keep talking about the nation of Israel, and I'm going to come back to that. But, Reverend, you're a man of God, and therefore I'm certain a man of integrity. Therefore, I'm asking you, what is the point of dropping warnings on people who have nowhere to run? Because the gates have been locked.
Well, I would say that if the people came up humanitarianly, Israel would have been required to have opened up those gates in response to dropping of those leaflets. But one would have to ask them, was there anybody that came to the gates, because neither you or I were there, George. But can I point something else out, George, in relation to a war situation? When we all know that one particular city in the Second World War bombed by Germany was lowered to the ground, and we know what we're referring to as Coventry. And we also know that our own nation, Great Britain, responded by creating the fireball in Hamburg. So, I mean, what was justifiable there in a war situation? Would it not be better for everyone to work together towards recognising the establishment of a peaceful coexistence of a Palestinian alongside the Jewish nation? And
you've used that phrase now, and you've now altered it, and therefore forced me to take you on this, Reverend. You made, I think, 5 references to the nation of Israel, and I was going to query that. But now that you've compounded that by describing it as the Jewish nation, I'm afraid I have to challenge you. First of all, at least 1.5 million citizens of Israel are not Jewish. Now, unless you're one of those who believes that those 1.5 million citizens of Israel who are not Jewish are somehow meaningless or worthless or even second-class citizens, Reverend, you'll understand that concept being from Belfast yourself, then your terminology, your nomenclature is severely limited. Secondly, there's the idea that the Jewish nation is involved in these crimes is a very dangerous one. The vast majority of Jews in the world do not live in Israel, and a very large number of the Jews in the world, both in Israel and outside of Israel, have absolutely no culpability in the crime that was committed in Gaza at all. Please never fall for the synonym that Jew equals Israeli, or that Israeli equals Jew, or that Zionist equals Jew, or that Jew equals Zionist.
As a place for the Jewish people to go from all over the world too, if they wish to live there. But there's also Arab people living there, Arab Christian churches. There's also Christian Jewish churches worshipping there, and there's also been an Arab Lord Mayor in Jerusalem. So it's democratic and exists in a democratic position. But what I'm saying again is this, that the nation of Israel should have a right to
Reverend, Israel is not a nation. It's a state. It's a state, not a nation.
It sits in the United Nations, George, and was
no, it's not a nation. It's a state. It's no more of a nation than any other multinational, multicultural, multi-ethnic state is a nation.
What do we say about the United States of America? That's not a nation, or the United Kingdom of Great Britain. It's not a nation, or my neighbours in Southern Ireland. They're not a nation.
But what you're doing is falsely conflating the terms Jewish and Israeli, and you're falsely linking the word nation with both of them. And I think that's highly.
No,
well, I would say
George,
disingenuous, except that you're a reverend, and I mustn't say that.
No, I respect what you're saying, George, and I'm not looking to insult you in any way, and I accept everybody's argument. I'm using the word nation as in under the United Nations, where all are classed as nations, the coexistent, peaceful existence, which came out of the League of Nations.
Yes, but this is a very unusual situation where, I mean, you used a very interesting phrase earlier when you said there are Arab people living there. And there are Arab Christians living there.
Of course there is.
Yeah. The point you've missed is that the Arab people living there and the Arab Christians living there are the original people of that country. They have been supplanted by or reduced to second-class citizenship by foreign immigrants who have come from Britain, from America, from Poland, from France, and so on. So it's not that they also live there, it's that this was their country before it was taken from them.
There was also in a particular region there, also in Palestine, a massive majority of Jewish people living there who had fled from the persecutions. And who had already been living there for a long time.
Where, Reverend?
In what was known as Palestine, which was set up under the 1918 mandate.
Where in Palestine was there any territory that had a massive majority of Jewish people living in it? Where?
You will find under the regional agreement that the British signed up to under the mandate of Palestine, which they agreed to rule and to try and sort out the situation between also the Arabs and the Jewish people that existed there at the time to create a coexistent area.
My goodness, Reverend, you'd make a good politician. You've avoided my question very deftly. You said that there were areas of Palestine that had a massive majority of Jewish people in them. I asked you where that area was.
Well, do you want to have a second chance? I don't have a map in front of me, George, but in history when I was
Trust me, Reverend, no such area existed. But I've enjoyed talking to you. It's been a highly unusual conversation. Reverend Paul of Glengormley in Belfast.